When you hear the word God, or if you try to imagine what God looks like, what do you see in your imagination? Do you see a white-haired man in a white robe? Do you imagine a universal energy field? Or maybe there is nothing when you think of God.
God is a frequency. It's our job to tune in. God is not a man. You hear people say reference God as him, he. They have this illusion that there's this sky daddy with a magic wand floating around granting wishes. That just really, in my research, isn't the case. It's more of a frequency, a divine frequency that is imbued in every living thing in the entire universe.
I'm going to ask you again because I want to be clear. What is the God you believe in?
I think that the claim that Christ is the embodiment of the prophet and the laws, I think that's true. It's complicated. It's very, very complicated, but I think it's true.
So you believe that Jesus was
God?
God.
Yeah. I mean, I've taken the idea of God seriously for a very long time. And I've said on multiple occasions that I try to act as though God exists, and that's essentially my definition of belief. When people say, do you believe in God? Belief is a multi-dimensional word.
The one I had never looked at, and now, I'm 58, so I'm like, okay, let me look at this one, is God. And I said, let me see about this God thing. I've never been a religious guy. And so I start reading, and I start talking to people. I also found that around me, like a couple of people I was working with, they're all Christians. And not that anyone was ever pushing anything on me. When I asked them questions, they were gladly answered. And there's a lot of stuff written about Jesus. There's a lot written, thousands of years of books. And there's some contemporary stuff such as Evidence Demands a Verdict. And, this just is so much. And I got to tell you, Joe, as sure as I know that Building 7 didn't fall down out of sympathy for Building 1 and 2, God is real, Jesus existed, he was a badass outlaw, and it has changed my outlook on life. It has really changed the way I look at things. And I believe that we can win with God. I know
the Jewish community is in some way monolithic. The master of all the universe in a definitional box of human creation. So I would echo what my colleagues and friends have said by saying that it is in fact, in some ways, a violation of God's sovereignty to treat God's sovereignty too narrowly, and that it's fundamental to my sense of faith to say that there is one God that we find different paths to, that we have different expressions of, that change within our own traditions over time, that are different in any one moment across a society, and it seems to me fundamental to a monotheistic conviction to say that of course we do.
In this video, an ex-Christian actually challenges the Christian apologist on some things that he thinks are contradictory in the Bible.
Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence.
Right, but if you don't have any evidence, you probably shouldn't believe it.
Unless Jesus believed it and Jesus rose from the dead, and I just have a personal policy. If somebody rises from the dead, I just believe whatever the guy says.
Does it logically follow that raising from the dead makes everything you say true?
If Jesus claimed to be God and proved to be God, and God is the standard of truth, yes, it does.
How does that prove being God?
How does it prove being God that Jesus rose from the dead?
For example, if I stood here, claimed I was God, died tomorrow, and was risen 3 days later, does that make me God? Does that prove my claims?
Well, if you had predicted it long in advance, if you were sinless, if you did 35 other miracles over 3 years, and then you did that, yeah.
That's not proof, though. It does not logically follow that because I can rise from the dead.
The question is, what do you mean by proof?
Well, it doesn't conclusively demonstrate that I am God.
Okay, so out of all those proofs of God, what, if any of them, are persuasive to you?
None.
None?
None.
Okay. So then what... If you look at a human being and you look at the improbability of our, how we are put together, do you believe that we are largely an accident of multi-billions of years of evolution?
Yes. How do we know? How do we not know that how do we know that there isn't something that's identical to us on another, planet somewhere that we haven't encountered yet? It's just a skeptic in me that's thinking that way. That says, hey, maybe there's something out there that we haven't contacted yet that is in another galaxy or another planet or something that we just don't know about.
Or maybe there isn't. What do you think happens when you die?
Nothing. our electronic impulses just stop firing and
Let me ask you
nothingness.
the most important question.
Okay.
Do you hope you're wrong?
Not really. No, I mean, I've got
So,
this.
so,
it-
you,
it-
so you
I
don't
think-
you don't desire an afterlife.
I consider this life as an atheist the more compelling than even when I was younger and when I was religious, because I think that this is the only life we have. We need to do with it what we can, the best that we can do it, and it's like I said, it's just the one chance we got. We don't have an afterlife. We don't have anything after that. So our goal is to become the best people that we can possibly be in that one chance that we get.
Okay, I will be stunned. So you hope that there's no eternal judgment and you never see your loved ones after you die.
No, not really.
I hope you all internalize just how dark that is, how sad that is.
Do you pray to God?
God in what sense?
In what sense do you see God? Is there a God?
There is, let's say, the theistic religions, their fundamental sort of faith is creator, God,
Right.
as a creator. Then non-theistic religion, that's, you see, one ancient Indian religion, the Sanskrit word, the Sankhya philosophy, then Jain philosophy, then Buddhist philosophy. These three, no concept of God, creator. Of course, Buddha, as a Buddhist, we consider Buddha as a teacher.
Teacher, not a God.
Not God, not creator. So, some kind of the concept of self-creation there. The Buddha stated, you are your own master. So everything depends on yourself.
Do you believe in reincarnation?
Yes, I believe.
So you
reincarnation or rebirth. Rebirth we believe. According to many Indian tradition, you see, we have the concept of rebirth.
So you lived before?
Oh yes. You see, according to theistic religion, this very life created by God. That also very powerful concept. So that concept, you see, bring some kind of feeling of intimacy with God. So then, what is God? I think one aspect of definition of God is infinite love. So we actually created by that kind of infinite love. So that brings some kind of conviction. I have seed of compassion. So that's very, very powerful.
Yes, that's what we've been doing, isn't it so? Saying God is sacred, creation is filthy. How is it possible? The very thought of God occurred to you only because you saw creation, isn't it? When you were born and you opened your eyes, you looked around, so much creation. Before you came here, so much has happened. Obviously, you did not create it. So you thought, there must be a creator. This is how you come to the creator, isn't it? The moment you thought there must be a creator, because you're in a human form, you thought it must be a big man. A small man like me cannot do all this. It must be a big man. Just 2 hands, how can it do so much creation? Must be 8 hands. Isn't it? Isn't it so? If you were a buffalo, you would be really thinking, God is a huge buffalo. Isn't it so? Yes or no? You go and ask a buffalo and see. A buffalo will insist, God is a huge buffalo, maybe 4 horns. You know Idi Amin? You heard of Idi Amin? The Uganda man? Idi Amin declared, God is black. I agree with him. If a white man can have a white God, why can't a black man have a black God? But both those people are confused. We know God is brown.
Scientists as to who believes in God, who doesn't. I'll just go on record. I'm very comfortable saying it. I believe in God. I do. I think there are many things that science can explain, There are certain things science can't explain, but I'll even go a step further, which is that all the elements of science are entirely compatible with the idea of there being a God. And I'm not the first scientist to say this. I mean, Einstein believed in God. Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists ever, clearly believed in God. There are many atheist scientists. There are agnostic scientists who are just kind of like unsure, right? And, you know, for me, I'm in absolute awe of biology. It's just incredible that we're sitting here having this conversation. It's with language, that there are little sound waves that you're perceiving and understanding. I mean, it's just, and I think the brain represents the apex of incredible in terms of biology. Like the heart is interesting, the immune system is interesting, the liver is interesting, but the brain is unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the number of different ways you can move your body compared to another species. Think about what you did today. Think about what I was attempting to do today, right?
Yeah.
Spectacular. Think about technology, these lights, the, you know, Tesla cars, spaceships. I mean, the internet, I mean, unbelievable. And yet, oh, so real.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, we could talk a bit about how well, I'll just say this. Secretly, I've always prayed. But I'll say this, you know, I absolutely pray. I absolutely love that the idea, but also what for me is really a deep belief, which is that we can't control everything. We're not in as much control as we think we are. And that the magnificence of biology and the magnificence of nature is, it's impossible for me to conceive how that could come about any other way. It just is. Now, yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, full stop.
Who do you pray to?
That's an interesting one because I think God.
The first question we have to establish, does God exist?
Yes.
Of Moses at the burning bush. And Moses at the burning bush says, who shall I tell the people that you are? Talking to God. And God says, tell them I am that I am.
That's right.
I am identity itself. I'm being himself.
That's exactly right. That's what the CTMU says. It just comes up with the mathematical structure that you need to build a reality out of that. You see? So you come up with that identity and then you search it for its properties. You see, once you've built the preliminary framework, then you start deducing the properties of this identity, and you find out that those properties match those of God as described in most of the world's major religions.
This connection to the biblical I am isn't coincidental. When we use I am statements or affirmations, we're tapping into this same fundamental principle of identity. Langan's mathematical model suggests that God as the ultimate identity isn't just religious symbolism, but a logical foundation of existence itself.
God
properties of the central substance and central principle of reality, those properties are attributed to God, including, of course, you know, things like you have the three O's, omniscience, omnipotence, and omnipresence, but then you've also got consciousness. God has to be sentient. What is the universe?
Damned if I know.
You ever hear of the simulation hypothesis?
Yes.
Okay, well, the simulation hypothesis is basically the idea that the reality we see around us, physical reality, is simulated on some sort of an automaton or a computer.
What do you mean? I hate to put it in the...
Well, I mean, okay, here's the display. You realize the display contains states.
Yep.
Okay, you see things, the objects contain it. States are static.
Yep.
That's why they're called states. Yeah. Okay, static. How do they change? Well, they have to be processed. Something has to be processed.
Yeah.
What makes Langan's argument so powerful is that it doesn't start with religious premises. He begins with the logical requirements for reality to exist and function. When he examines what properties this fundamental identity must have, he finds they match precisely with traditional descriptions of God: all-knowing, all-powerful, everywhere present, and crucially conscious. Langan uses the simulation analogy to illustrate a profound point. Reality consists of both what we experience, the display, and the underlying processes that allow change and coherence. For reality to function, something must process these changes over time. This provides further evidence that a godlike entity is necessary for reality to exist as we experience it.
Okay, God provides the processing functionality for your state. You have an internal state, an external state. You're a material human being. Right? Like to explain how that is changing through time, and maintaining its coherence through time, even as it changes. That's what you need God for. You can establish a personal relationship with God. We're images of God. You know what an image is? It's basically the product of a mapping. God maps himself into each human being, right? That's a very personal thing that God is doing for us, right?
Here Langan completes his logical argument. Our existence as conscious beings who maintain coherence through constant change requires this divine processor. And far from being distant or impersonal, this God creates us as reflections or mappings of itself. This 200 IQ perspective bridges the gap between cold logic and spiritual meaning, suggesting that God's existence is both rationally necessary and deeply personal.
What is God really like? You might have grown up as an atheist, or you might have just never really cared about it up until this moment. But first you need to understand that God is not an old bearded guy in the sky. God is not creation itself either. He's much more powerful than that. He created everything by just His will. He created all the millions of planets, the different galaxies, the huge sun that is so big that the Earth can fit inside it 1.3 million times.
Okay, so what is God?
When you look at
I said, God is the original substance from which all other substance evolves. You don't believe that? Is that even a belief? Do you have to believe that there was an original substance from which all other substance derive? Of course not. That's just simple, compelling logic. Now, that original substance, you want to call it a subatomic particle? Go right ahead. It's not a compliment. But if you think that all existence derives from a subatomic particle, then that is your creator and that is your God. We would rather think that whatever that original substance was also intelligent and had a plan for creation. So there's your choice. Everyone believes in a God. Your choice is this God a subatomic particle that has no idea what's happening? Or is the original substance an intelligent being with a purpose? I prefer the intelligent being with a purpose, because that explains. If you say, I believe God exists, you're talking nonsense. Because if He does, He does, whether you believe it or not. And if He doesn't, then He doesn't, whether you believe it or not. So to ask, do you believe that there is a moon? It's a silly question. The question is, what does He want? That's a relevant question, and it's a question we've always asked without realizing it. Everybody throughout all of history has always asked, what is the purpose of life?
Created all life, but my definition of God is not like that. I don't believe God is person or entity. God is just another form of energy, or actually is energy. Himself, well, not even himself, itself. For the fact that you look at the Bible and other really, awesome but extremely vague and unreliable sources in religion that, hold these sources that we find and facts that we find, or so-called facts that we find, and really a lot of people think it's just about faith. But if you relate the Bible to quantum physics and apply most of the laws actually in less of a figurative sense, but more of a literal sense, and replace it with things like the universe, you'll eventually find out that it explains in-depth quantum physics and astrophysics, experiments and theories. Well, maybe not theories, because maybe now they're proven. Who knows? Maybe the Bible isn't a story of something that happened on Earth, but maybe a story of how our universe began. For the fact that, honestly, I don't really buy into the literal biblical sense like, God is literally a guy who looks like us, who sits up in an alternate realm that's in our clouds and, watches over all of us. But I guess you could say that he's an energy form that created all, and is everywhere and nowhere at the same time. God, or energy, lives within us, through us, and
is us.
And is us, frankly.
So you said what? That God is the energy that is in us, created us, and is us. Is that your definition?
Yep.
I don't want to put words in.
It means that the divine energy that flows in and through you and throughout the entire universe is the divine God energy. That is the creation energy. And that energy is inside of your body. Okay, that energy interacts and synchronizes with the universal consciousness and with your own avatar body, and allows you to have power within your own reality tunnel. And this is what a lot of people do not realize, what a lot of people don't understand. When I say you are God, just as a lot of the ancients have said you are God, including a lot of people who have religious books, their book tells them that they're gods as well, and that they're supposed to perform miracles. It tells them that, but they don't want to hear that part. You're supposed to understand the true power that resonates inside of you, and you're supposed to be able to command your reality, command things into existence. And it doesn't mean that you're walking around with a magic wand creating planets and stuff like that, but it means that because we're living in a fractal universe, and a fractal is basically you are a small part of the whole, to make it very simple. I'm not going to get too scientific and too technical. I don't want to lose you. But if you look at a hologram, for example, if you take out one tiny piece of a hologram and look at it, you'll find out that the entire image is in that little tiny piece of the hologram. The only thing you lose is resolution. This is real science. We're a fractal of the universal consciousness. Every single one of us is an individual fractal of the one source, the divine energy, the divine source that creates everything in the third dimension. So what's happened is the universal consciousness, or this divine energy, has broken itself out into trillions and trillions of entities, or Googles of entities throughout the entire universe, to experience itself subjectively as individuals, even as a blade of grass, even as a rock, even as atoms that have formed into what we call a hominid, or a human being, a human body, and other species that are out there as well. Because why? Because the universal consciousness is on a data collection mission. It wants to collect information and data. Think of the universal consciousness as your brain. Okay, your brain is encased in complete darkness. It knows nothing, it sees nothing, it feels nothing, it senses nothing whatsoever. It has friends though. So its friends get sent out. Hearing, seeing, smelling, touch, feel. It says to his friends, hey, go out there and tell me what's going on. Collect some information and bring it back to me. This is what the universe is doing. The same exact thing, as above, so below. So your brain sends its friends out. Hearing, smelling, touch, smell, all your senses. They go out, they collect information. But what they do is they collect data. Digital bits of information that they themselves cannot decipher. Okay? Your nose can't decipher the information it's bringing in. Your fingers can't decipher the touch and feeling that they're getting out there. It only can collect data. It transmits that data back to the brain, which is encased in complete darkness, and then your brain sorts it all out and then projects a hologram of what's going on out there. And you navigate through the matrix based on that. I had to disconnect there for a second. And you navigate through the matrix based on that hologram. And that's how you operate and maneuver your avatar body through this electromagnetic field that we call the third dimension. Everything only exists as electromagnetic waves until a conscious observer and vibration frequency collapses that information to a slower vibration, which then we can identify as matter or solidity. But in true reality, solidity and matter, even distance, is all an illusion. Okay? But when I say that you are a God, you have to understand that you have the same commanding powers as a divine energy, just in a very smaller fractalized form inside of your own body.